Hello grade 9ers. Today we're going to take disease and immunity. Okay, when we talk about the disease and immunity, what is the first thing that crosses your mind? Like, what is a disease and what is an immunity? The disease here, anything that can cause you illness. That means your body is not functioning well due to a pathogen or any sort of problem that happened inside of your body, and your body is like responding to it. So the immunity here is actually the response that your body does towards this foreign body or anything that has happened and caused a change in your body. Okay. The pathogens here, in general, is a disease-causing organism. It could be a bacteria, could be a virus, could be a fungi, any sort of pathogen or microorganism that actually causes you illness. And there are types of diseases. Some of them, we call them transmittable or infectious disease. That means can be transmitted from one person to another. Or those who we can call them non-infectious disease. That means once the person who has them, it cannot go or transfer to another person who's probably socializing with them or living with them or any sort of thing. One of the examples of a non-infectious disease or the non-transferable ones, it's like cardiac disease, renal failure, for example, any sort of disease that cannot be transmitted or anything like that. The ones that we call infectious, it's a disease in which the pathogen can be passed from one host to another. What's the meaning of host here is actually the human being, or could be like an animal regarding those sort of diseases that can be transmitted from animal to human and vice versa. The pathogen for a transmittable disease may be transmitted either by a direct contact, like through the blood or body fluids. Indirectly, could be by contaminated surface, that means unclean surfaces, by food or from animals or air. Okay, now we come to the body defense. Every single action has an action in return. Once the pathogen enters your body, does your body stay still and doesn't react upon it? No. Your body here has a defense sort of mechanism. It's like your cells are fighting back for this microorganism. So the human body has many natural defenses against the pathogen. The first thing is the mechanical sort of barrier. Like what? Like the nostrils. Inside of our noses, you can just look at the mirror and see there's tiny hair inside of our noses, and you'll say, oh, doesn't look very favorable, but no. That tiny hair that you don't seem to like it is one of the major things that actually helps you to, or actually helps to cleanse the air that you're inhaling. So by that it helps to trap the dust. Also, our skin is like a major barrier because it has a thick outer layer of dead cells. So most likely it prevents microorganisms from getting inside. Now we come to something called the chemical barrier. We've heard a lot about chemical barriers, but we don't know particularly what are they. For an example, inside of your stomach, we all know since 6th grade or 7th grade that we do possess a strong acidic acid called hydrochloric acid. What is the main function of this acid inside of our stomach? The main function of this acid inside of our stomach is mainly to kill bacteria. Okay, since it's actually acidic that much, won't it hurt the stomach? Well, the stomach here has an inner sticky material called a mucous membrane engulfing or actually covering the walls, the muscular walls of our stomach. So kind of prevents the acid from touching the inner side, the inner layers of the stomach. The sticky mucus, which can trap pathogens also, since we inhale through our respiratory system, so at the edges of the trachea, the bronchus and the bronchioles, there's a thin sticky material which traps the pathogens or whatever is left from the particles that we inhaled with the air and cleanses it up. Also, we have cells. The pathogens that manage to get through all these defenses are usually destroyed by white blood cells, the WBC. Some of these cells take in and digest the pathogens by phagocytosis. The phagocytosis here is a process which these cells, the phagocytes, engulf the pathogen in order to, like, it's kind of like shouting for its own sister, the lymphocyte, to come and kill this sort of microorganism. So others produce antibodies that actually kill the pathogen. Vaccination against disease helps also the antibodies to produce very quickly. The immune system itself. Now we're getting to the main point. An antibody is a protein molecule which fits into another molecule, like the enzyme sort of binding to a substrate. The pathogen molecules are called antigens. To destroy a pathogen, an antibody molecules must be made which are exactly the right shape to fit into the molecules, the antigen, on the outer side of the pathogen. So it's more likely as a fitting shape between the substrate and the enzyme, so it has to have the exact sort of shape in order to be like, to bind with it and to destroy it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like that much effective. Antibodies lock onto antigens, leading to destruction of the pathogen. That means marking of pathogens for destruction by the phagocytes. If actually a pathogen enters the body, it meets a large number of lymphocytes. One of these will recognize the pathogen and divide rapidly by mitosis. These lymphocytes then secrete an antibody destroying the pathogen. Okay, so now we knew the process of how, since we recognize that this is the pathogen, how we were going to deal with it till the end of the process and how we're actually going to destroy it. We've got two types of immunity. We've got a passive immunity and an active immunity. The active immunity here is like a defense against a pathogen by antibody production. And it's gained usually after a previous infection or by vaccination. Sometimes, like the first thing we got, like this cold and flu, for an example, and it took us like 7 days to recover, or 10 days. So practically, and we didn't take like medication, for an example. So our body here like managed to make their own antibodies towards this pathogen that caused me the illness. So when it comes again, it's like, oh, my body has now recognized it. So it's like, okay, everyone, come on, let's go. We have a pathogen here, the same pathogen that we had the last time. So you here acquired this sort of immunity. Another type of immunity, I can get it by vaccinations. It's like when you have this vaccination sort of system, and each year you've got a specific vaccination to go through. Then what is vaccination? The vaccinations here are like you get to be injected by a dead or a harmful sort of pathogen in order to make your body respond towards it. So when you get affected by it, you already have the antibodies to fight back. The process of vaccination here is that the harmless pathogen given which has antigens, and the antigen trigger an immune response by lymphocyte which produces antibodies. Then we have the memory cells. This is where your body actually memorizes that, oh, okay, we had this before, we had this pathogen before. And they produce that, or actually they give us a long-term immunity. Okay, the passive immunity is like the sort of immunity a baby gets from the mother, either by a placenta or breastfeeding, but it's a short term of immunity and it doesn't contain memory cells. So it's just like a temporary one, it doesn't last for long. And also, one of the diseases that is caused by the immune system is like when the immune system starts fighting its own cells, like the diabetes type 1. Because it actually targets and destroys the cells that actually produces or secretes the insulin hormone. So those people who actually have diabetic, it's like kind of like an immune system killing its own cells. Okay, then what is insulin? Insulin here is like a hormone. It is actually a hormone that our body produces to control the levels of the sugar inside of the blood. And once we don't have it, or we have like a dysfunction here by the immune system when it's actually targeting and destroying these type of cells, so the person no longer has control on the level of sugar inside of the blood and starts taking artificial insulin because the body no longer produces it or secretes it from the pancreatic cells. And this will be for the immunity chapter. Thank you for listening.